The typewriter keys hammered against the paper with desperate precision as Lysander Ashworth's fingers moved across the machine at 23 minutes past 2 in the morning on March 9, 1943. The fluorescent lights above Hut 8 cast harsh shadows across his gaunt face, illuminating the dark circles beneath his eyes that spoke of 72 hours without sleep. Around him, the other code breakers had long since abandoned their stations, leaving only the rhythmic ticking of the wall clock and the occasional crackle from the radio intercept station. Smoke from his fourth cigarette of the hour curled upward, mixing with the stale air that reeked of burnt coffee and anxious sweat. His hands trembled slightly, not from fatigue, but from the weight of what he was about to do. The intercept in front of him contained coordinates for a massive U-boat Wolfpack operation scheduled to begin in less than 18 hours, targeting a convoy carrying 17,000 Allied troops across the North Atlantic. The established protocol demanded he follow the standard decryption sequence, but every instinct in his mathematician's mind screamed that the conventional approach would take at least 36 hours to crack this particular variant of the German naval cipher. By then, those 17,000 men would be sleeping beneath the cold waters of the Atlantic, and their blood would be on his hands. Lysander took a deep breath, pushed aside the official cryptanalysis manual, and began implementing a theoretical approach that violated every rule in the Bletchley Park Handbook. No one in the government code and cipher school knew that one man's mathematical rebellion that night would not only save thousands of lives, but fundamentally change how the Allied forces approached German naval communications for the remainder of the war. Lysander Cornelius Ashworth had never intended to become the man who would rewrite the rules of cryptanalysis through pure mathematical audacity. Born in the industrial town of Middlesbrough in 1915, he was the youngest son of a steel foundry foreman and a schoolteacher who recognized early that her son possessed an unusual gift for numbers that transcended anything she had encountered in her 23 years of teaching. While other students struggled with basic multiplication tables, young Lysander could perform complex calculations in his head, often arriving at correct answers through methods that baffled his teachers. He would stare out classroom windows during mathematics lessons, watching geometric patterns formed by steam rising from foundry chimneys, and somehow translate those visual observations into numerical relationships that his instructors could barely comprehend. By age 16, he had already mastered calculus and differential equations, teaching himself advanced mathematical concepts from university textbooks borrowed from the public library. Cambridge University accepted him at 17 with a full mathematics scholarship, though the transition from industrial Middlesbrough to the ancient halls of Trinity College proved challenging. The academic environment at Cambridge taught him that mathematical rules were not absolute commandments, but rather frameworks that could be modified, expanded, or completely reimagined when circumstances demanded creative thinking. He learned to question established methodologies and develop his own approaches to complex problems, skills that would prove invaluable when faced with challenges that required thinking beyond conventional boundaries. Professor Edmund Whitworth, who taught advanced number theory, began assigning Lysander additional problems that challenged even graduate students, and was surprised when the young man returned each week with solutions that revealed innovative approaches to classical mathematical challenges. Little did anyone know that these university lessons in mathematical rebellion would one day determine the fate of thousands of Allied soldiers crossing the treacherous waters of the North Atlantic. The war reached Cambridge in September of 1939, transforming the peaceful academic environment into a recruitment center for essential war work. By spring of 1940, German bombers were flying nightly missions over London, and the government began recruiting university students for classified positions. Lysander's mathematical abilities brought him to the attention of military recruiters seeking individuals with advanced analytical skills for secret government work. After an intensive interview consisting of mathematical puzzles and logic problems designed to test his ability to find patterns in seemingly random information, he received orders to report to Station X, a location in Buckinghamshire that would change his life forever. The train journey to Bletchley Park on May 15, 1940, marked the beginning of his transformation from university mathematics student to one of Britain's most crucial code breakers. Bletchley Park, the sprawling Victorian estate that served as the secret headquarters for Britain's cryptanalysis operations, initially appeared more like an eccentric country manor than the nerve center of Allied intelligence gathering. Lysander was assigned to Hut 8, the department specifically responsible for breaking German naval ciphers, where he joined a team of mathematicians, chess champions, linguists, and crossword puzzle experts recruited from universities across Britain. Commander Harrison Blackwood explained that their primary responsibility was breaking the naval version of the Enigma cipher, which the Germans used to coordinate U-boat operations in the Atlantic Ocean. Every day that German naval communications remained unreadable meant additional Allied ships sent to the bottom of the ocean carrying vital supplies, military equipment, and thousands of personnel who would never see their families again. The stakes could not have been higher, and conventional cryptanalytic methods were proving inadequate against an enemy that seemed to anticipate and counter every British technique almost as soon as it was developed. The technical challenge of breaking German naval Enigma represented one of the most complex cryptographic problems ever attempted in military history. The Enigma machine used a system of rotating wheels and electrical circuits to scramble messages according to mathematical principles that created billions of possible combinations for each letter typed into the machine. German naval communications used a more sophisticated version than standard Wehrmacht models, with additional security measures including special code books, indicator procedures, and frequently changing key settings that reset every 24 hours. The code breakers had achieved some success by developing mechanical devices called bombs that could test thousands of possible Enigma settings in hours rather than years. But Germans regularly modified their cipher procedures, introducing new security measures that rendered previous British methods obsolete overnight. By early 1943, German naval communications had become increasingly difficult to penetrate, particularly traffic related to U-boat operations, where submarine commanders were sinking Allied merchant vessels faster than British shipyards could replace them. The spring of 1943 brought increasingly desperate conditions to the Battle of the Atlantic, as German U-boat operations reached peak effectiveness against Allied shipping. Admiral Karl Dönitz had deployed Wolfpack tactics that coordinated groups of U-boats in sustained attacks against convoys crossing from North America to Britain. These coordinated assaults were devastating Allied merchant shipping at rates that threatened Britain's ability to continue fighting, with German submarines sinking over 700,000 tons of Allied shipping per month. German cryptographic security improvements implemented in February had created what intelligence analysts called a blackout period where British code breakers could no longer read current German naval traffic with sufficient speed to provide actionable intelligence to convoy commanders. Winston Churchill himself had visited Bletchley Park, emphasizing that their work represented Britain's secret weapon in a war that would be won or lost based on mathematics and intellectual courage rather than traditional military might. March of 1943 brought devastating convoy attacks that demonstrated urgent need for breakthrough cryptanalytic success. Convoy HX-229 and SC-122 encountered coordinated Wolfpack attacks that sank 21 merchant vessels in 4 days, meaning not only hundreds of deaths but destruction of military equipment, food supplies, and raw materials that Britain desperately needed. Intelligence analysis indicated German submarine commanders had received advance warning of convoy routes, suggesting their communications security enabled attack coordination with precision that British convoy commanders could not match without equivalent intelligence about German intentions. The critical intercept arrived at Bletchley Park during evening shift on March 8th in the form of brief German naval messages exhibiting unusual cipher patterns. The messages contained coordination instructions for a major Wolfpack operation scheduled within 24 hours, including position coordinates and tactical instructions enabling German submarine commanders to coordinate attacks against Allied convoy HX-230, carrying 17,000 American troops from New York to Liverpool. Commander Blackwood estimated conventional analysis would require 36 to 48 hours, but convoy HX-230 would encounter the German Wolfpack in less than 18 hours. The mathematical equation was brutal. Conventional methods would produce accurate intelligence approximately 24 hours too late to save 17,000 Allied soldiers from German submarine attacks. Lysander studied the intercepted messages throughout the evening, recognizing theoretical vulnerabilities in cipher structure that might allow faster decryption through experimental mathematical techniques. But pursuing these approaches would require direct violation of established protocols and unauthorized use of computational resources allocated for other projects. By midnight, only 3 codebreakers remained at their Hut 8 stations. Lysander had spent 4 hours studying intercepted German messages, developing theoretical approaches that might achieve faster results through unconventional mathematical methods. His analysis identified specific patterns suggesting vulnerabilities related to mathematical structure of the encryption algorithm, particularly how rotor settings interacted with indicator procedures to generate apparently random cipher sequences. The theoretical approach emerging from his analysis would require treating cipher as complex mathematical equation rather than mechanical encryption device, using advanced probability theory and number analysis to predict likely plain text solutions without conducting exhaustive mechanical searches through all possible cipher settings. This represented fundamental departure from established methodology, which emphasized systematic mechanical analysis over theoretical prediction. But Lysander's calculations suggested experimental approach might achieve reliable decryption in 6 to 8 hours rather than 36 hours, required by conventional methods. At precisely 1:15 in the morning, Lysander made his decision and began implementing the most audacious act of cryptanalytic rebellion in British intelligence history. He cleared his desk of official materials, retrieved a fresh notebook, and began complex mathematical calculations that would either revolutionize Allied cryptanalysis or end his career in complete failure. The experimental approach required treating intercepted German messages as complex statistical system, analyzing frequency patterns of encrypted letters to identify mathematical relationships that could reveal information about underlying plain text without determining specific cipher settings. His first step involved calculating probability distributions for each position within encrypted messages, looking for statistical variations that might indicate predictable relationships between plain text and ciphertext that could be exploited mathematically rather than mechanically. The calculations were extraordinarily complex, requiring manipulation of multidimensional probability matrices incorporating information about German cipher procedures, Enigma machine characteristics, and linguistic patterns in naval communications. Lysander worked with intense concentration, filling pages with equations, statistical calculations, and probability analyses that gradually revealed patterns in intercepted German traffic invisible to conventional cryptanalytic methods. His mathematical approach treated cipher as complex equation system, where multiple unknown variables could be determined simultaneously through analysis of their statistical relationships rather than searching individually for each cipher setting through mechanical computation. After 3 hours of continuous calculation, patterns emerged suggesting specific vulnerabilities in German cipher that could be exploited to determine probable plain text solutions for intercepted messages. By 4:30 in the morning, Lysander's unauthorized mathematical experiment had produced preliminary results revealing essential content of intercepted German naval messages, including coordinates for planned Wolfpack operation and timing information for coordinated attacks against convoy HX-230. The statistical analysis indicated German submarine commanders had received instructions to establish patrol positions along specific shipping route corresponding exactly to planned track for Allied convoy carrying 17,000 American troops. Decrypted intelligence revealed not only location of planned ambush, but also timing of individual submarine movements, number of U-boats involved, and tactical procedures German commanders intended to use during coordinated attacks. Verification process required comparing decrypted German messages against independent sources of intelligence about German naval operations, looking for corroborating evidence confirming accuracy of experimental cryptanalytic results. Comparison revealed striking similarities between his results and known examples of German submarine coordination instructions, including specific terminology, coordinate formats, and timing procedures matching established patterns in verified German naval traffic. These verification procedures provided strong mathematical evidence that experimental cryptanalytic technique had successfully broken new German Cipher variant and produced accurate intelligence about planned attack against convoy HX-230. At 6:45 in the morning, Lysander approached Commander Blackwood's office with intelligence obtained through completely unauthorized cryptanalytic methods. Commander Blackwood found Lysander waiting with notebook containing decrypted German naval communications and detailed mathematical analysis covering 17 pages of complex calculations. After 30 minutes of intense discussion about mathematical methodology, verification procedures, and operational risks, Commander Blackwood made decision to present Lysander's intelligence to higher authorities with appropriate disclaimers about experimental nature of cryptanalytic techniques used to obtain information. Admiral Sir Max Horton, commander of Western Approaches Command responsible for convoy defense operations, faced extraordinary decision. Act immediately on potentially life-saving intelligence obtained through unverified methods or maintain standard operational procedures awaiting conventionally verified intelligence that would arrive too late to protect convoy HX-230. After consultation with operations staff and careful analysis of tactical situation, Admiral Horton issued orders for convoy HX-230 to implement immediate course corrections based on coordinates and timing information provided in Lysander's controversial intelligence summary, simultaneously dispatching additional destroyer escorts to provide enhanced anti-submarine protection during critical period when German attacks were expected. Results became apparent during afternoon and evening of March 9th, when Royal Navy destroyers encountered German submarines at precisely coordinates and times predicted in decrypted messages, confirming unauthorized cryptanalytic work had produced completely accurate intelligence about planned enemy operations. Destroyer HMS Vanquisher established sonar contact with German submarine U-384 at 14:20 hours, exactly matching position and timing information Lysander's statistical analysis had revealed. German Wolfpack encountered Allied convoy defenses positioned specifically to counter their planned attacks, resulting in destruction of 3 German submarines and complete disruption of coordinated assault tactics that would have inflicted massive casualties. Convoy HX-230 reached Liverpool on March 13th with all 17,000 troops safely delivered to British ports, suffering only minor damage to 2 merchant vessels during enhanced anti-submarine operations implemented based on Lysander's experimental intelligence. The aftermath of convoy HX-230 intelligence success created unprecedented changes in British cryptanalytic operations, as senior officials recognized Lysander's experimental mathematical approach represented fundamental advancement in code-breaking science that could be applied to other German cipher systems throughout the war. Commander Blackwood submitted detailed report describing mathematical techniques used to break new German naval cipher variant, emphasizing experimental approach achieved results in 6 hours that would have required 36 hours using conventional methods. Within 2 weeks, Lysander was promoted to senior cryptanalyst and given authority to develop experimental mathematical approaches for attacking German cipher systems that had proven resistant to conventional analysis. His theoretical techniques were integrated into standard operating procedures at Hut 8, and similar mathematical approaches were adapted for use against German Army and Air Force communications, exhibiting comparable statistical vulnerabilities. Lysander's mathematical innovations contributed to a series of cryptanalytic breakthroughs throughout 1943 and 1944 that provided crucial intelligence for Allied military operations, including D-Day landings, where German communication security was penetrated using statistical analysis methods developed through his unauthorized experiments during convoy HX-230 crisis. Following World War II conclusion, Lysander returned to civilian life with mathematical skills transformed through 4 years of intensive cryptanalytic work. He accepted teaching position at Leeds University, developing courses in applied mathematics, incorporating statistical analysis techniques without revealing their origins in classified intelligence work. Mathematical techniques he developed through unauthorized experiments continued influencing British intelligence operations throughout Cold War period, as statistical analysis methods were adapted for use against Soviet cipher systems exhibiting similar vulnerabilities. The story of Lysander Ashworth's mathematical rebellion during World War II's darkest hours demonstrates how individual acts of intellectual courage can create changes influencing history far beyond their immediate circumstances. His decision to abandon established cryptanalytic protocols in favor of experimental mathematical techniques represented fundamental challenge to institutional authority justified only by urgent need to save human lives through innovative analytical methods. 17,000 Allied soldiers who survived German submarine attacks because of intelligence obtained through his experimental cryptanalysis represent only a immediate measure of impact that extended through their families, post-war contributions to society, and participation in subsequent military operations that helped liberate Europe. Mathematical techniques he developed under extreme pressure during single night of unauthorized work influenced academic research, government policy, and scientific innovation in ways creating benefits for millions who never knew their lives had been affected by decision of one British mathematician to trust theoretical knowledge more than established institutional procedures. The question his story poses to each generation is whether we possess sufficient courage to challenge conventional approaches when human welfare demands innovative solutions requiring personal risk and intellectual independence. Would you have abandoned established procedures to pursue experimental methods that might save 17,000 lives? Or would you have followed orders and accepted that conventional approaches would provide accurate intelligence 24 hours too late to prevent catastrophic loss of human life? Comment below and share this story so others can remember that courage and mathematics, when combined with moral responsibility, can change the world in ways no equation can fully measure.